All right, good morning, YouTube. Looks like we're live. I was running a little bit behind the power curve here, running here to talk to you all. Seeing I got everything pulled up. Trying to think of what I'm missing. Give me a thumbs up out there if you can hear me. Make sure we got somebody coming in. It looks like we do at some point. But I hope everybody's having a good day. I guess we'll be covering things people aren't having a good day necessarily. But we'll get into it. Looks like Jay Grady was here with us really early in the morning. Out there, she put a video out just in time, just so she could be late to work last night. Had to tell her thank you. I guess she probably came home from work, went to bed. But thanks for joining us. There's your weather snapshot. All that rain across mostly the southern portions of the country. Looks like the monsoon's been treating Arizona good this year. Could use a little bit of that rain a little bit further west. These forest fires are getting out of hand. Most of California seems like it's burning down with everything I'm seeing on the news and whatnot, and the smoke I see outside. Looks like we got M. Long also joining us this morning. Good morning, Michigander man. Hey, how you doing? Good morning. Did you go to the car show yesterday? I didn't see a video on it. You said it was every week, but you probably may not. Those were cool videos you were doing a while back. I like those cars. And Jay Grady is still here. Okay, thanks for joining us. Thanks for hanging out. Probably got things to do in the morning still after you get home from work, I figure. So most of us aren't getting rain, it doesn't look like, unless M. Long is catching some of that. If you dried out from the last week of rain, is the question out there in the southeast. They've been getting just dumped on. But this California fires is just out of, I would say, for lack of a better word. And I keep getting the smoke. They keep getting fires. Mother Nature had videos live streamed last night of those fires, and so, which is the top story on the Weather Channel over here. Check this video they got coming out of down there around Lake Elsinore. They're the Holly Fire. Yeah, Holly Fire has gotten really bad. Let's just check this out real quick.
Dow's hillside with red fire retardant in Southern California as fire crews continue to battle the holy fire. The fire, started by an arsonist, has prompted more than 20,000 evacuations in an area south of Los Angeles. Now, so far, the blaze has destroyed at least and burned more than 10,000 acres. Fire crews have a lot of work ahead of them. The fire is only 5% contained. One of their big concerns is that afternoon winds could stoke the fire and make their job even harder. They hope to encircle the fire before it can devour neighborhoods and claim lives, which is what fires still burning in Northern California have done. Fortunately, fire crews in the northern part of the state have turned a corner with the Mendocino Complex fire. It is now more than 50% contained. Still, the fire burning about 100 miles north of Sacramento is a brutal beast. The complex, which is made up of a pair of fires, is the largest fire in California history. So far, it has charred more than 300,000 acres. It has destroyed more than 200 structures and threatens thousands more.
So, yeah, definitely bad situations going on there. So you cut that out. So fires just all up and down California. Let me pull up a map just so most of you East Coasters are probably like oblivious to how large some of this area is. Let me pull some around here to give some perspective if you haven't looked at a map lately. see what I got here. I'm going to leave out the fire maps because they kind of skew everything a little bit from your perspective over there. Let me pull this up. And when you're talking about these fires in California, you're talking about an area basically it's like covering from Washington, D.C. down to the Florida line. That's about how big California is long. But you got the fires up here in the north, up by the Shasta Trinity National Forest. You got the Mendocino that's down here north of Sacramento. You got the one they were just talking about that is outside Camp Pendleton out here between Los Angeles and San Diego. Kind of, it's right in here in this area, we'll say. It's also in the green forested area. And we've got these ones in the Sierras that have been beating us up that there's like a series of them. There's one that just started outside Sonora Pass, which is here. Then there's the bigger one that is in the Yosemite entryway down in here. So it's just one after another. There's a line of them that goes all the way up. And like I said, that one, the Mendocino, which is the one north of Sacramento, is just the biggest in California history. And all that smoke just dumps right into Nevada. So it's no fun. But they are all over in all types. And there's many other small ones that are out there as well. So no fun for any firefighters. Still a number of fires in other states. Everybody's pretty much tapped out. Personnel-wise, I would imagine it can't be a fun situation. Recruiting all the volunteers and whatnot, I'm sure. So just a brief look at that, and we'll move on here. There's a couple articles in your links below about the fires. And some pictures out of California that they got talking about the smoke and whatnot. So that's one of your stories in the links. Who we got to join us this morning? Walter Davis is with us. Good morning. How you doing? Barry Wood is getting smoke as well. It's been 105 for you. Yeah, it's been right around 100 for us all week. Not fun at all. And yeah, Grady, that rain out there, I've been noticing. Definitely getting more than your fair share, I guess you'd say. We've been trying to do an email system. Everybody emails their water out west. So we've been trying to work that out and taking that water into the west where we can use it. But it hasn't worked out so far. Hey, Andy's Journeys, how you doing? Good morning. Thanks for joining us out there in Chattanooga. Yeah, the arsonist of that Southern California fire, the Holly fire, I'm not sure if they caught him or not. I know the one up here in Reno that they had out by Pyramid Lake, they arrested a guy. I mean, I don't know how much proof they had that he's the guy that did it, but they arrested a guy for starting a fire. But a lot of times those things go unsolved. It's very hard to catch somebody that's out in the middle of the woods, you know? Oh, Walter, your son's at Pendleton training. Oh, really? So interesting story that popped up during this. Look for this was that the ballot initiative to split California into 3 parts has been dropped. And it looks like it's because it was state Supreme Court had previously said it couldn't be on the ballot. So it got all that attention a while back. I'm wondering why they spent all that money to get that organized and done, and then they just back off of it. So they're taking that initiative off the ballot after the court in July had ruled that it had to be removed. What was the reason they gave? So a guy spends $1.7 million to get that on the ballot and just backs down when the Supreme Court tells him no. Even though he could have appealed it, he could have even tried to put it on future ballots. So here's the story. So the Planning and Conservation League had sued. Draper's the name of the guy who tried to get the initiative onto the ballot. They sued him, arguing that such a massive change to the state's governance couldn't be done through a ballot initiative. I think the ballot initiative just directs the state to begin the planning and begin the process of splitting the state. The way it was written, it doesn't just like happen overnight. In any case, no matter how it happens. So the Planning and Conservation League argued the people can't vote for things and vote to tell the state legislatures what to do, I guess, basically. Interesting. I still think it's a distraction from the State of Jefferson movement, but they've dropped it now and nobody else can put anything else on the ballot. So there's that. Big spending of a lot of money for looks like no outcome. So that was interesting. So what else we got going on in the world today? It looks like Trump's starting a trade war with Turkey. First thing out of the gate this morning, the Turkish lira currency's down. Trump just announced metal tariffs on Turkey. This kind of came out of the blue. I mean, we've been paying attention to a lot of different stuff that's going on, but hadn't seen any. I mean, Turkey's been going their own little volatile since Erdogan took over. They had that suppressed coup a couple of years ago. Now that was, and they've been pushing back against NATO moves. They're technically a member of NATO, but they've not been they've kind of been going their own way lately. And this kind of came out of the blue that this was going down with some tariffs on them. He made a tweet at 5:47 this morning. So we're tariffing Turkish aluminum and steel at 20 and 50%. There's talks that the stock market's going to open triple digits to the down today. So everybody's kind of caught off guard or not expecting this, I think. Did kind of come out of the blue. So economic warfare, as it says here, is definitely, I think, what we're looking at. Erdogan, the Turkish leader, is quoted here is, change the euros, the dollars, and the gold that you're keeping beneath your pillows into lira at our banks. This is a domestic and national struggle. Do not trade your gold for lira, whatever you do. That'd be my advice. You can go ahead and change all those dollars and euros you want. Do not change your gold for lira. But of course, people are going to have to, because people are going to be starving now. I mean, this is going to have a huge economic impact, I'm sure, on a smaller country like that. Not a wise move to trade in your gold, though. So what else does this mean? Expand this. So it looks like the sharp drop in Turkish assets came after a delegation returned from Washington with no apparent progress on the detention of U.S. pastor Andrew Brunson, who is charged with supporting a group blamed for the attempted coup in 2016, like we were talking about earlier. So they have somebody. Okay, I haven't been keeping up on this one. They have a pastor in detention that they accuse of being part of the coup, and that's part of it, apparently. So he's placed sanctions based upon their refusal to free Brunson. Wow. Okay. I wasn't up to speed on that. And it's having big effects on the markets. They were predicting at the beginning. Let's go over and open this up. Who else we got joining us? What we got going on? Yeah, it looks like the Dow's down 160 or so. Can't get no momentum to the upside. I wonder why that is. But it is having its initial effects. It looks like red. Oil is up, of course. Oil is always up when there's anything like that going on. All right. Hey, Crazy Scotsman's join us. What's going on? You're getting ready for work? Good luck with that. So, the economics, do you think Turkey would just release the guy? I don't know how tied he was to that coup. It's the first I'd heard of it, actually, that there was an American being held and suspect to being tied to that. So that's new to me. Maybe there's more to that than we knew. So I was scanning a lot of international stuff today. So they also, I was looking there. This is on Zero Hedge. 60,000 Pakistani troops are heading to the Afghan-Paki border, it looks like. So it looks like there's an effort of some sort to secure the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, which I would say is 10 times harder than trying to secure our southern border. Not because it's so long, but because it's so pretty much mountainous and rugged. But this is citing using a Bloomberg official or Bloomberg article, and where they were interviewing some military officials, it looks like. But they're trying to improve the security along what's called the Durand Line, an old agreement that only some people recognize. And like we were talking about tribalism a while back, the local Pashtun tribes don't recognize it at all. Either Afghanistan or Pakistan is controlled in a lot of respects. So they are trying to secure this border with Afghanistan, and they have 13% of the security fence along the 1,400-mile-long border has been erected. So they're also trying to put a security fence up. I don't know if they have a map on here. So the Durand Line is not the full border area, but one of the questionable treaties that. Okay, there it is. So, like I said, it's old, 1893. Present border based on the Durand Line, as you can see, runs. Okay, it is the whole length of the current border. And I'm talking about the Pashtuns. Again, they pretty much cross that border with irregard for who says they can go wherever. Yeah, good luck, Pakistan. I've been on a little bit of that border, and not only is it pretty much non-existent for the people, it's non-existent in practice in a lot of respects too. So they're moving to consolidate Pakistan's border operations, which have been beefed up in recent years after widespread insecurity racked the country after the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan. So again, they're looking at trying to use 60,000 troops for this effort. Pakistani army, which has 661,000 regular and paramilitary troops, have usually been focused on the eastern border, which they're almost still in a technical war with India. If you've heard of the Kashmir region, which goes back to the partition off of India. So they're questioning here whether this is part of Pakistan's response to President Trump saying that Pakistan hasn't helped anything and helped be a safe haven to terrorists. The United States has foolishly given Pakistan more than $33 billion in aid over the last 15 years, and they have given us nothing but lies and deceit, thinking of our leaders as fools. Or is just a hush game, one or the other. They have given safe haven to terrorists we hunt in Afghanistan with little help and no more. That was a tweet he put out in the beginning of the year, beginning of 2018. So Pakistan's at this big effort to secure this border. Man, do I have a picture I could pull up? I don't have one handy, I don't think, but very difficult effort. Very difficult. To what end we might question Pakistan's coverage of this area, what they call, it's kind of their tribal areas in a lot of respects. All this green area on the Pakistan side where the Pashtun tribe resides is very much not very well government managed, I guess you'd say. There's a name they have for it, a technical name, like we would call one of our Native American reservations, like the Navajo or something. They have a name for this area. There's tribally administrated lands, and essentially, and they don't go in there very often at all because the Pashtuns basically start fighting them. Ever since we gave money to the Pakistani intelligence service to get money in and weapons into Afghanistan across that area, it has been a back and forth with these tribes on who controls what and who gets weapons and who fights who. And probably one of the last really free roaming areas in the world that no major government can control. Definitely a lot of tribalism in a lot of those respects. So they close out this article with the war in Afghanistan mostly finished, it seems as Pakistan and Afghanistan are making strides towards peace. In doing so, Pakistan is erecting a massive fence with 60,000 troops to ensure a new era of peace. I don't know. If you got a bunch of troops deployed, it doesn't sound like you're really at peace. You're just show of force to keep people from doing certain things. If so, the one question we asked, the U.S. has spent almost 2 decades bombing the Middle East. Could peaceful times bring a wave of new investments into the region via China's One Belt and Road Initiative? And we talked about that months ago. China has this huge initiative. I don't think that any of China's investments are going to run across the Pakistan-Afghan border, though. Not anytime soon. There's nothing going across that border anytime soon, in my opinion. But we shall see. It was interesting that this big efforts are going because, like I said, Pakistan has been in low-grade war with India for a long time. Incidents up on the Kashmir Glacier and the Kashmir area go on regularly. And for them to put that many troops over on the Afghan border is telling. All right. Interesting. So check that out. That's in your links below as well. Our sign of the apocalypse of the day was next. Or maybe the end of the apocalypse. The apocalypse is not going to happen, or I'm not sure how to say it. So Lord Rothschild has been quoted as saying the New World Order is at risk, which we could only hope so, if that was only actually true, right? So Lord Jacob Rothschild. So this is based upon some quotes he's made over the past. So this is going back to a report from 2014 as well, when he warned in a Capital Partners 2014 annual report, Rothschild warned that The geopolitical situation is the most dangerous since World War II. 1 year later, he warned again that the outcome of what is surely the greatest experiment in monetary policy in the history of the world. And then again in 2017, he cautioned that share prices have in many cases risen to unprecedented levels at a time when economic growth is by no means assured. So little did he know that they were going to keep rising, but related to that, he also made another warning, which the market so far has blissfully ignored. So now, in the last half year, Rothschild has made his latest warning to date, this time focusing on the global economic system that was established after World War II and which he believes is now in jeopardy. Well, we can only hope, right, for the rest of us. Hey, Backwoods Laws joined us. Hey, you doing? Good morning. Let's see what the Rothschilds are up to. You know, those conspiracy people that Alex Jones told us about, and it turned out to be true, most of it. And they're calling him a conspiracy theorist. The billionaire banker pointed to the U.S. trade war with China and the Eurozone crisis as the key problems, putting economic order at risk and the lack of common approach, a reference to the gradual unwind of globalization in the wake of President Trump. That has made cooperation today much more difficult. Well, the pushback against globalization started way before that. I just don't give him that much credit, but putting economic order at risk sounds like a threat. And I think that's the way that you could perceive a lot of this, as a threat that things will stay orderly or else. Quote here, in 9/11 and in the 2008 financial crisis, the powers of the world pulled together with a common approach. Cooperation today is proving much more difficult. This puts at risk the post-war economic and security order. So the article goes on to surmise here. It wasn't clear if he was referring to the post-war fiat standard that emerged once FDR devalued the dollar relative to gold and then fixed a price for the yellow metal, a tenuous link that was subsequently, it's too early in the morning to say a word like that, subsequently destroyed by Nixon, who finally took the U.S. off the gold standard, or the primacy of the dollar, which emerged as the world's reserve currency after the end of World War II. But whenever one of the people who profited handsomely from the post-war world order warns it may be on its last legs, it may be time to worry. Yeah, because we know these people make plans way ahead of time, and they're able to finance a lot of their abilities. You would think he would already be financing the move to whatever that new system, new effort might be. He's already looking down the road, 10 moves potentially. You don't get stay in positions like that without doing so. Because everybody, you'd have to look at it and be like, this isn't going to last forever. What are we going to put in place to take its place once it's done? I would think that they've thought that through. I've been thinking that through for years. So they've implemented the system. They probably knew it wouldn't last, and just trying to figure out how to transition out of it into something that they can benefit from is probably on their agenda. Could that be cryptocurrency? I don't know. Just a thought. So moving on here, checking the side chat. It's like you guys are just talking to each other. Cool. Remember to make sure you're tracking the links. So, and then they go on into this, it looks like. So with global risk growing, how is Rothschild positioned? That's my question. The Lord Wright states that in the circumstances, our policy is to maintain our limited exposure to quoted equities and to enter into new commitments with great caution. That's the quote there. So, and indeed, in the first half, Rothschild's Capital Partners Group, their RIT, RIT, had a net quoted equity exposure of only 47%, historically low. The reason? The iconic banking family is concerned that the 10-year bullish cycle and market rally could finally be ending. Going into quotes, the cycle's in its 10th positive year, the longest on record. We are now seeing some areas of weaker growth emerge. Indeed, the IMF has recently predicted some slowdown. While Rothschild noted that many of the world's economies have enjoyed a broad-based acceleration not seen since the aftermath of the financial crisis of 2008, with as many as 120 countries seeing stronger growth last year, he also cautioned that we continue to believe that this is not an appropriate time to add to risk. So consolidating positions and making new moves. So one potential risk is Europe, where debt levels have reached potentially destructive levels. So inserting some quotes from their report. The problems confronting the Eurozone area of concern are both political and economic, given the potentially destructive levels of debt in a number of countries. Global trade war is a threat that they're worried about. And Rothschild also echoed the recent warning from the head of the Indian central bank, warning that the shrinking of global dollar liquidity is hurting emerging markets. Finally, Rothschild remains understandably concerned about geopolitical problems, including Brexit, North Korea, and the Middle East, at a time when populism is spreading globally. Rothschild continued the shift away from U.S. capital markets exposure announced 2 years ago, noting that his exposure to absolute return and credit assets continued to generate steady returns on currencies. The net asset value benefited from the strengthened U.S. dollar. If we can see this graph or not. It's hard to read there. So exposure to currencies so this is Rothschild's investment of currencies. The light blue is December 2017. The dark blue is June of 2018. Less on the U.S., more on the pound sterling. A lot less on the euro, a lot more on the Japanese yen, a little bit in other. There's a series of other graphs below. Whoa. Compare the collapse of the fund's U.S. dollar exposure, the capital's investment portfolio continues to do quite well. So Rothschild's his capital fund, whatever this thing is called, this is their performance: 2,400% return since inception. That's the growth of their fund that he's put together. They might have an inside angle if you're getting returns like that. So there's a whole other slew of documents here on their investment portfolio, which I'm not going to go into, nor could I figure it out probably if I wanted to. So finally, for all those wondering where the Rothschild family fortune is hiding, here's the answer. So here's a graphic. We'll just pull up this to see if we can surmise this. Hey, Castaway, how you doing? Good morning. We're looking at Rothschild's ultimate plan here to see how he's going to kick this New World Order off. So this is their group. Obviously, they're a capital management group. This is the breakdown. So if we didn't know, which I didn't know all this, so 30. This is what's official. This is what the official the line is out there. 31 offices, 19 countries, 2,700 employees, 250 years of banking and financial tradition. So this is right out of their documents, it looks like, quoted. The group created in 1953 by Baron Edmund de Rothschild. He was a baron then, Lord now. It is chaired today by his son, Baron Benjamin de Rothschild, and his wife, Baroness Ariane de Rothschild. They keep propagating, unfortunately. Key figures: US dollar, $168 billion in management. So you can see they got 48% of their assets in private banking, 52% are in asset management, probably like stocks, equities, everything else you can think of outside of banking investments. $26 billion in institutional and fund services, $81 billion in private U.S. banking assets with 22 offices worldwide. So it kind of breaks down what they do. Private banking, corporate finance, institutional and fund services, private equity. It's kind of a brief, not very detailed at all, but they did have the other breakdown up higher of all their investments, the least publicly acknowledged investments in this graph up here. So that's interesting. Rothschild warning that, you figure if his 168 billion falls apart, it's going to have an effect in a lot of places. And he probably doesn't want that. And you got to figure that 168 billion is leveraged how much. That's a real concern, because if you leverage 10 times to the dollar, if you got 10 to 1 leverage on different things in the markets and whatnot, you can imagine that goes into the trillions when it gets into leverage just in his one fund alone. And that's the real concern about how that really can fall apart with leveraged assets that are would be a way to say it, but on paper only is another way to say it, that they leverage to squeeze interest rates out of people and invest in interest payments and things like that. So it creates some sort of income, but is not really anything tangible. So there's our update on one of the world's most destructive people. It was interesting seeing him come across a headline. They are not talked about very often. And I was talking about earlier in the week, everybody downplays Alex Jones as a psycho. He was talking about Rothschilds and the Bilderbergs and everybody long before anybody else. You got to give him credit for at least getting people to at least look into who they are and what they do. So that takes us through our links here. Anybody got anything going on out there? I know you guys out east are getting a lot of rain, as Andy says. Rain. Grady was talking about their rain they're getting. Everything I see coming out of the south is just rain, and more rain. It's unreal. So with Turkey being on the verge of getting pounded economically, you got to figure they're going to lash out at somebody. They're not adverse to going to war with somebody. They had an incursion into Syria shortly after the coup, maybe in 2016, something like that. They've got border disputes with the Kurds. They're not good neighbors for the most part. A lot of the invasion of refugees into Europe has gone through Turkey as they access the straits there into Greece and everything, and Bulgaria and all those countries. And plus they can get on ships and go into the Mediterranean from there and go to other ports. Middle East refugee situation went through Turkey. Windy in Tasmania. Right, Castaway? It's like Black on us going to work. That's good. I gotta get the work done. M. Long, you're getting another distillery. That's a bourbon distillery coming your way. That's a big story for. Well, that's a big. Hey, that sounds like jobs. It sounds like everybody having a good time. If there's enough people are buying more bourbon, is it to get over their depression or to celebrate their successes? I guess it's depends on why people are buying more bourbon. You know, it's what's really going on. Here's a headline that may have slid under the radar. I just caught this on the Drudge. China fires 6 warnings to U.S. Navy in the South China Sea. We definitely got to check this out. This is out of the UK, of course. The no U.S. media would ever cover this. So this is updated pretty much now. It looks like China fires 6 warnings to U.S. Navy in South China Sea. Leave immediately. So it told it to a U.S. Navy plane flying high over the disputed island in the South China Sea. So if you don't know, China has occupied or otherwise built their own islands out in the South China Sea. So they got a lot of detail here. U.S. Navy jet was flying at 16,000 feet, to get a view of low-lying coral reefs that have been turned into garrisons with 5-story buildings, large radar installations, power plants, and runways sturdy enough to carry large military aircraft. So yeah, they're building their own artificial islands essentially. So it looks like the Navy took journalists from CNN on a rare look at the islands. The crew was warned 6 times by the Chinese military to get out of their territory. So the voice said, U.S. military aircraft, this is China. Leave immediately and keep out to avoid any misunderstanding. It's a good Chinese. That sounds like a good translation. I'm sure if they said it Chinese, it was a lot more eloquent. Each time the aircraft was challenged by the Chinese military, the U.S. Navy crew's response was the same. I am a sovereign, immune United States naval aircraft conducting lawful military activities beyond the national airspace of any coastal state. In exercising these rights as guaranteed by international law, I am operating with due regard for the rights and duties of all states. So that's the response. See, if you try to tell it to a police officer when he pulls you over, you just get shot. Anyway, separate issue. Our government agents try to execute sovereign immune rights, but as an individual, if you try to execute sovereign immune rights, you look down upon. It's funny how that works out. So again, CNN happened to be with him, it looks like, when they were on this run. The U.S. Navy jet had flown over 4 key artificial islands in the Spratly chain, where China has built up fortifications. There they call them here, Subi Reef, Fiery Cross Reef, Johnson Reef, and Mischief Reef. How they got their names, I don't know. Some of the overhead pictures. Before the crew was warned, the jet's sensors picked up 86 vessels on the Subi Reef that included Chinese Coast Guard ships. On the Fiery Cross Reefs, rows of hangars stood alongside a lengthy runway. So that overhead picture there is Subi Reef, looks like. Beijing has said it is necessary for the Asian powerhouse to keep growing its military presence in the South China Sea in order to protect its sovereignty. China also blames Washington and its allies for tensions in the regions. Yeah, people don't like it when you talk about sovereignty. You're going to have a bad time there, China. Some other overhead pictures of other islands. Reminds me of places like Tarawa, Iwo Jima. Regular U.S. Navy patrols and flyovers of the South China Sea are efforts for the U.S. to provoke China, and therefore the country is justified as increasing its military presence. That's more of the statement from China saying that. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Hua Chunying said, by playing up the so-called China's militarization in the South China Sea, certain people in the U.S. are staging a farce of a thief crying, "Stop thief." It is self-evident to a keener eye that who is militarizing the South China Sea. So they're going to play that game back and forth. So the South China Sea spans 3.6 million square kilometers, and Beijing's claims extend more than 1,000 kilometers from its southernmost province, which is almost the entirety of the waters. The United Nations has estimated that a third of global shipping passes through the waters. The South China Sea is also believed to be rich in oil and natural gas reserves that have yet to be explored. Probably because of all the storms and everything that go through there. China reinforced its claims by constructing the artificial islands militarized with airfields and radar equipment. In April, the military placed missiles in the Spratly Island chain during naval exercises. And we talked about that big armada, essentially, that was going through the area in the South China Sea back then when we were all distracted with Ukraine or something else. I can't remember. They were all going on at the same time or something. So Admiral Philip Davidson said in April that China is already firmly entrenched, and quoted here, China is now capable of controlling the South China Sea in all scenarios short of war with the United States, and maybe still be able to control it then, I would say, or at least the majority of it. In response, the U.S. has stepped up its military exercises as well as a way to show Washington's naval power. So that's continuing to escalate, and looks like more of the same. The Philippines and Vietnam can't be happy about that. I know they have their own wants to try to access some of those oil and gas reserves. This is decades and decades in the making. People have been trying to explore these areas to look for resources and whatnot. I think we had Alicia Clegg join us. Look, good morning. How you doing, Alicia? Walter Davis likes bourbon. Right on. RG Homestead, good morning. How you doing? Thanks for joining us. We're just wrapping up this China's control of the South China Sea, which, with the name of it, it kind of goes without saying you would expect the Chinese to control it. South China Sea. Okay, got it. That way, traditionally, though, what we got going on in the markets now, looks like everything's sitting normal. Not too much of a reaction after the tariffs on Turkey. So we got that going on. Quite a bit going on out there, folks. Tried to run it down as best we could this morning. Definitely a wide variety. Again, look, everybody out in California, those fires, be safe. Hope people get out unscathed and they put that stuff out quickly. As they were talking about, the one in Southern California was an arson fire, which is just that's equivalent of, you might as well rank that up there with murder and just put them out of our misery. People like that got no business hindering our society. Would kind of be my take on that. M Long's punching out. See you later, M Long. Oh, right, Walter. Those can't be Chinese islands, but they're in the South China Sea. It's kind of a confusion of words, maybe. Yeah. All right. Anything else going on out there, folks? Anybody's got a lead on? Otherwise, I'm just going to think I'm going to wrap it up. And hopefully we can stay out of trouble between now and tomorrow. Stay tuned. I put Lando's Fake News Friday link down in the links below in the description box. He does a Friday Fake News Day article. It's usually fairly humorous. Go check that out. See what they've been looking into. But definitely not a good time to go to California with or literally all up and down the state fires and some of the nicest areas to go visit. Couple links on the Drudge about Venezuela, it looks like. So the situation there continues. All right, and there was that. Everybody's probably pretty up to speed on the whole New Mexico extremist compound raided, kids found, training to commit atrocities, etc. Everybody's probably pretty in tune with that. I don't need to go into that. Hey, High Pocket, how's it going? High Pocket, you're in Utah now, right? You've moved completely. You were relocated, if you will. Wait, what? Walter Davis. Walter, what in the world? You met a guy who developed organic pest and weed control. Drank the bug spray. It's all safe. Walter, I don't even understand how that's possible. But if you say so. So you're going to try to get his name out? Drank the bug spray. If it kills bugs, it ain't good enough. I don't want to drink it, even if it is organic. All right, High Pocket. Cool. Yeah, getting out of California was a good call. It's all burning down now. Hope you're settling in Utah well. Go visit Alicia down on a local tour or something. All right, High Pocket. It looks like a smart city. So you're saying Salt Lake's like every other big city. Everybody's distracted by their electronic devices. All right, well, that'd be cool. Yeah, if you got if you got to do a video on that, that'd be interesting. Organic bugs pressed and weed control. That'd be interesting. if it's safe enough to drink. Does that mean you're going to be drinking it live on video? That would be very interesting. Interesting indeed. We will call it a day here for Friday. Have a good weekend if we don't see you tomorrow or somewhere else on the YouTubes this weekend or the rest of the day, visiting around the various videos being put out there. So have a good one. Thanks for dropping by. Have a great day. Live free.